60 years. You know what 60 years looks like? It looks like two people eating dinner in perfect silence, the clink of silverware against china, the only conversation we've had in decades. It looks like sleeping in the same bed but living in separate worlds. It looks like a marriage that everyone admires from the outside, while inside it slowly rots like fruit left too long in the sun. Margaret made reservations at Romano's, the same place we went for our first anniversary, the same red leather booths, the same terrible wine list, the same smell of garlic and old dreams. She wore the blue dress, the one I complimented once in 1987. She still wears it to every special occasion, like she's trying to summon a ghost of who we used to be. I ordered the veal. She got the salmon, no capers. We've been ordering the same meals for 40 years. Safe, predictable, dead. "How's your food?" she asked, cutting her fish into perfect squares. "Fine," I said. "Always fine. Everything's always fine with us." Fine is the word you use when you've given up on great, settled for adequate, and made peace with emptiness. The waiter brought champagne. Cheap stuff, but it bubbled. Margaret raised her glass, and I saw something in her eyes, a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, tonight would be different. That maybe after all these years, we'd finally talk about the elephant that's been sitting at our dinner table since 1964. "To 60 years," she said. "To 60 years," I repeated, and the words tasted like ash. We drank in silence. The restaurant buzzed around us, young couples laughing, families celebrating, life happening everywhere except at our table. We were like two museum pieces, perfectly preserved but utterly lifeless. That's when she asked it, the question that changed everything. "Robert," she said, and her voice was so quiet I almost missed it. "Do you think we're happy?" Happy. Jesus Christ, when was the last time someone asked me if I was happy? When was the last time I asked myself? I looked at her face, really looked at it, and saw a woman who'd been waiting 60 years for an honest answer to an honest question. I could have lied. Should have lied. Lies had kept us together this long. But something about the way the candlelight caught the lines around her eyes, the way her fingers trembled slightly on the champagne flute, made me realize that lying had already killed us both. We were just too stubborn to die. "No," I said, one word, 3 letters, 6 decades of pretense shattered. She didn't flinch, didn't cry. She just nodded, like she'd been waiting for someone to finally say it out loud. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Known what?" "That this isn't working, that we're just existing." I set down my fork. The veal had gone cold anyway. "Since the beginning," I said. "Maybe not the very beginning, but close enough." She took another sip of champagne. "Why didn't you say anything?" And there it was. The question I'd been dreading for 60 years. Because how do you tell someone that you married them not out of love, but out of fear? How do you explain that you were so terrified of who you really were that you buried yourself in a life that looked right from the outside? How do you tell your wife of 60 years that you've been in love with someone else the entire time, and that someone else was your best friend, David, who died in Vietnam before you ever got the courage to tell him? "Because I was a coward," I said. "Because it was 1962 and marrying you was what I was supposed to do. Because I thought if I played the part long enough it would become real." The words hung between us like smoke. Margaret's face didn't change, but something behind her eyes shifted. Recognition, maybe, or relief. "I know," she whispered. "What?" I said I know. I've always known, Robert. Not the details, but I knew you weren't really here. Not with me. Not the way a husband should be with his wife. The restaurant kept spinning around us, but we were frozen in this moment of terrible truth. Two people finally admitting what they'd both known but never said, that their entire life together had been an elaborate performance. "Then why?" I asked. "Why did you stay?" She smiled then, and it was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. "Because I loved you anyway. Not the you that you were trying to be, but the real you. The one who was so gentle with broken things, so careful not to hurt anyone that you forgot about not hurting yourself. I loved you for trying so hard to be good, even when being good was killing you." I started crying then, right there in Romano's with the terrible wine and the fake leather booths, crying for the boy I'd been, who was so afraid of disappointing people that he built his entire life around a lie. crying for Margaret, who'd spent 60 years loving someone who couldn't love her back the way she deserved. Crying for David, who died not knowing that someone loved him completely. Crying for all the honest conversations we never had, all the real moments we traded for safe ones, all the life we'd wasted pretending to be fine. "I'm sorry," I said. "God, Margaret, I'm so sorry." She reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was soft and wrinkled, marked by decades of patience I didn't deserve. "Don't be sorry for who you are," she said. "Be sorry for the time we wasted pretending to be someone else." We sat there holding hands like teenagers, both of us crying now, both of us finally free to admit that our perfect marriage had been a beautiful prison. The waiter came by to check on us, took one look at two old people crying over cold food, and quietly walked away. "Smart kid. What do we do now?" Margaret asked. I thought about that. 83 years old, and I was finally asking the right questions. "I don't know," I said. "For the first time in 60 years, I honestly don't know." And you know what? That felt like the most honest thing I'd said in decades. We didn't solve anything that night. Didn't suddenly fall in love or decide to get divorced or make any grand gestures. We just paid the check, drove home in comfortable silence, and went to bed in the same bed we'd shared for 60 years. But something had changed. The weight was different, lighter somehow, like we'd both been holding our breath for 6 decades and finally remembered how to exhale. Margaret's asleep now. I can hear her breathing, steady and peaceful. Tomorrow we'll have to figure out what happens next. Whether there's still time to build something real from the ashes of something fake. Whether love can grow in soil that's been poisoned by decades of dishonesty. But tonight, for the first time in 60 years, I'm not pretending, I'm not performing, I'm not fine. I'm finally, terrifyingly, beautifully honest. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's where real love begins. Not with the lie that everything's fine, but with the courage to admit that it's not. 60 years of quiet distance, cracked open by one simple question: are we happy? Turns out, the answer was the beginning, not the end.